This is T.W. Arrighi. He is the former aide to Senator Lindsey Graham and Mike Pompeo, and he's also vice president at the Push Digital Group. Also with us is Nomiki Konst, a former surrogate for Senator Bernie Sanders. T.W., I want to start with you on what Trump said about not ruling out military force to try to take over the Panama Canal and Greenland. What do you think? Bluster? Negotiating tactic, a real threat? What's your view?
I think it could be a negotiation tactic. I don't know. I haven't spoken to the president about it. But I want people to realize that the Greenland conversation and Panama is actually just good statescraft. Could you imagine our posture toward Russia, our defense posture, if we didn't have Alaska, or with China if we didn't have Guam? Well, when we were going to acquire both those areas, you heard a lot of the same arguments you're hearing now about Greenland and Panama. But I want to just say there are more people who live in Casper, Wyoming than Greenland, which is our least populous state. And the fact of the matter is China and Russia are licking their chops about making a move against Greenland because the Arctic is so vital for future trade routes, minerals, military. It is very much in our national interest to buy it from Denmark because they do not have the resources to keep China and Russia at bay in the Arctic.
You say buy it from Denmark, but as you just heard there, Trump did not roll out using military force. And you do have to wonder, you bring up, Russia and you bring up China, how they're viewing these comments and whether they view it as maybe a way to be emboldened when it comes to Ukraine and Taiwan.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I know in the context of the Arctic, which is going to be one of the major hotspots in the future, I do actually believe Russia is bold enough to make a move at Greenland. As the Arctic ice shifts, you will see trade routes open up. Mineral deposits are massive there. And Denmark is not in a position to defend adequately against it. It's in our national interest to take control of it.
Nomi, to go to you on this, you might think some of these things sound outlandish or unrealistic, but could some of this get support from Democrats in Congress? As you hear Trump say time and time again, he is claiming a mandate to lead from the election.
Well, he didn't really win by a mandate. I mean, the margins were very close, and we know what the numbers in Congress are right now and how close that is. And so his mandate is very much reliant on Congress, which is not beholden to him. They're beholden to their voters, especially the Senate. But when you look at a situation like the what's happening with Russia right now, they're stretched too thin. I don't see Russia going into Greenland anytime soon or to Denmark when they can barely keep up the war in Ukraine right now, and every other country they're trying to occupy in the Caucasus region is not having it. With that being said, this was supposed to be an economic development speech, and all I heard was empire building. It was like the ghost of Teddy Roosevelt had come back and was speaking through, Donald Trump and his crazy whale conspiracies and windmill conspiracies. If he really wants this to be an economic plan, he can't say things like, we're going to invest multi-billion dollars in data centers, but oh, by the way, it's going to be Dubai that's paying for it, not the United States. If he wants this to be an economic plan and America first and to build our economy, then he needs to think about the jobs locally. He needs to talk about those electric vehicles that has really rebuilt much of Detroit and that region, the car industry. He needs to talk about strengthening unions. He needs to talk about what it means to invest in American jobs, not just putting the burden on taking over other countries and blaming Mexico. This is very creative positioning for him, but really what it does is it's just escalating tensions around the world by saying things like we're going to take the Panama Canal back when it's, we gave Panama back by treaty in the late 1990s. Treaties matter. You can't just violate international law and then say, NATO, we're so sick of spending money on NATO, everybody else should pay for NATO and increase the charges 5%. And Canada should be a state because we take care of them. But then you also want to take over other countries. So what, are you an empire or are you not? That's what I don't understand about Donald Trump's policies here.
But just to follow up with you, when it comes to, for example, the 5% GDP and the NATO countries having to pay more, look, Donald Trump did talk about that in his first term, and he did get NATO countries to pay more. And, his supporters might look at that and say they should be. If the U.S. is paying what it is paying, he should be, putting tightening the screws on these other NATO countries to pay more as well. What do you say to that?
And they've taken that seriously. European countries met just recently to discuss this because they are afraid that Donald Trump will completely pull out of NATO. So his negotiation tactic is not actually in the interest of Western peace and global stability right now. It's in the interest, frankly, of Russia and China. And, European countries mostly know that. They're so close to Russia and they feel the repercussions right now. So they're doing what's in their best interest in investing more money. But the reality is that our national security depends on NATO as well. And he's not acting on behalf of Western democracies right now.
I want to get your response to that, TW, and also just the argument. I heard it from Congressman Himes as well, the Democrat, that, look, he won the election because of the economy, is what he argued, and we heard very little about that and how he's going to improve Americans' economic lives. What do you say?
I thought I heard a lot about it. It started with a CEO who's bringing billions of dollars into this country, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more of it. He talked about deregulation to make products cheaper for Americans and more efficient for Americans. He talked about oil exploration to bring fuel costs down, which will lower prices across the country. Those are all economic messages. And I want to make one more point about Panama because it didn't come up. I don't think we appreciate enough that China has a chokehold on the most important shipping route on the planet. That is so insanely important for us. And if we believe the Panamanians can handle it, all right, I would like to see the evidence of that. I think it is in our interest, and Teddy Roosevelt did a tremendous thing building one of the wonders of the world. It's a tremendous American accomplishment, and we ought to take some ownership of that. And by the way, that also bleeds into our economy. If China starts screwing around with the Panama Canal, expect prices to skyrocket and our economy to crater.
TW, Nomi, thank you so much. And just ahead,